So, could BMW go the way of KTM? Now, what may seem on the face of it to be a rather melodramatic question to pose may, through its very contemplation, serve to highlight the gravity of the situation as it seems currently to be unfolding. We have grown somewhat used in recent years to consider as plausible situations and outcomes which would have been regarded as all but impossible not that long ago. History teaches us that the passage of time is not smooth and linear, but more granular and irregular in shape. If we plot a line from, say, the end of World War II to the present, we might reasonably see a period of several successive years of not much happening in the global context of the post-war period. And if we further imagine that line as a piece of string extending across the timeline under consideration, we might see a series of unevenly spaced small knots representing occasional upheavals in the affairs of the Western powers. The Suez fiasco, Vietnamese and Korean wars, the assassination of Kennedy, the collapse of the Soviet Union, 9/11, the financial crash of 2008 and other noteworthy events populate this timeline and occasionally seem to cluster together in a way which might induce in some an unshakable sense of impending doom. And whereas in recent years those events have come and gone without global calamity, they have, to my mind, shaped where we are today. So then, where are we today? Well, by we, I mean for the most part the Western world, mainly constituted by the powers of the Northern Hemisphere, under the hegemony of the United States, which since the collapse of the Soviet Union on December the 26th, 1991, has been the single dominant global power, militarily, economically, and to some extent culturally. I think that the best word to describe where we are now is stuck. I think that we in the West are living through a period which occupies a liminal space in our timeline, a space which sits between the age of relentless ascendancy and dominance and a coming age of decay and decline. I think we exist in a pocket of time, a clump of knots on our string, if you like, a time when events previously thought unconscionable barely raise an eyebrow when they become real and present. It seems utterly bizarre to me that in an age when conflict is raging in both Europe and the Middle East, and every conceivable horror unfolds daily, hourly, when every sinew of what it means to be a good human is being sacrificed at the altar of power and greed, and that we spend so much of our lives obsessing about which pronouns we should use so as not to offend, whose private affairs are on the menu du jour, how we can have the latest gadget at the first opportunity and thereby attack those with whom we disagree from the safety of a backlit keyboard in a darkened room. It sometimes seems that the corporate worlds of manufacturing and finance in the West have become so obsessed with pandering to the presumed sensitivities of some small sections of society that they have lost direction altogether and now rate how these things look above how they actually are. Now, I believe that this lack of focus, vision and ambition has become crystallised in recent years on the back of our most recent cluster of events on the timeline. The financial crash of 2008, the aftershocks of which still rumble through our lives. For us in the UK, Brexit, then the pandemic, the accelerating green agenda and the Ukraine conflict, all within the last 15 years or so. Now, I absolutely do not take a particular partisan view on any of these events. I simply list them as seismic entities in recent history, and which have served as massive distractions for continued progress and prosperity in the Western world. Unforced steps backward in a never-ending quest to move forward. So you might, with some justification, say, what has all this got to do with the motorcycle industry? Well, the recent entering into self-administration of KTM is just such an example of something once thought unimaginable becoming a reality. And if it can happen to KTM, you can be sure it can happen to any other mainstream brand. I can, without too much of a stretch, see a situation developing where BMW and others find themselves in a similar position. After all, there is no set of rules which says that such a state of affairs can never come about. Now, we know that the motorcycle industry more generally is in some difficulty. It has entered uncharted waters. Manufacturers and dealers in both the core and ancillary markets are struggling. Many have already ceased trading. Some because they have overstretched by buying out competitors, some because they are overstocked, and some simply because of a drop in demand. Factor into all of this the hugely increased overheads faced by both parties, and it's not hard to see that this trend of decline is a long way from bottoming out. Let's face it, the major economies of Europe are faltering. The once presumptive EU powerhouse of Germany is in dire straits. Its decades-long reputation for producing high-quality manufactured goods is being challenged from the Far East. The German finance minister has been sacked by an apparently hapless chancellor, and the entire country seems politically and economically paralysed. Manufacturing, particularly vehicle manufacturing, has suffered as a result of massively increased energy costs following the imposition of sanctions on Russia following the invasion of Ukraine. Germany, and other European countries for that matter, now find that previously cheap gas piped from Russia has to be shipped at much higher costs from the likes of India, so as to avoid breaching the sanctions. But India buy that gas from Russia and then sell it to us at a substantial markup. So much for those sanctions then. Whether we like it or not, and I understand completely why many don't like it, the industrial dominance of the West is coming to an end, and a new era of high quality and affordable merchandise is available from the Far East. Even that other Far East industrial power, Japan, is struggling economically, having as it does the world's biggest GDP to debt shortfall, and having played second fiddle to the old order for so long. Now, it might be argued that some of these challenges can be headed off by the imposition of tariffs. But tariffs are ultimately paid by people, not by governments, and they are thus inflationary in nature and likely to be short-lived where they are adopted. Others may disagree, and that's absolutely fine, but that would be my prediction. So, is it at all plausible that more KTMs lie ahead? Could the likes of Ducati and BMW find themselves in hot water? There's no reason why not, really. Their machines are extremely expensive and few people can now afford the best part of £30,000 for an adventure bike, whatever means of financing is offered. And who will buy such a thing from a company which may cease trading at some point in time? Like it or not, Chinese-made motorcycles are well and truly in the ascendancy, and whatever principled position we may take is likely to be irrelevant, as it is money which matters more than ever to the bike and car buying masses. So whether KTM is facing an extinction level event remains to be seen. I sincerely hope not least for all of those people working for that organisation. But let's not kid ourselves that which has befallen them cannot befall any European manufacturer. Whilst we are now starting to see the early stages of the Japanese fall cottoning on to this overpricing issue, there isn't an obvious move at present on the part of the European manufacturers of the bigger adventure bikes. BMW, Triumph, Ducati. No effort, it seems, by them to take seriously the challenges from the likes of CF Moto, Benelli, Vosges, Motomarini, Cove and others, who are all making it much easier for motorcyclists and would-be motorcyclists to realise their ambitions. I think if I were a premium motorcycle brand CEO in Europe, trying to fathom what really matters to his prospective customers, I think I'd be inclined to reflect on the words of James Corville during Bill Clinton's election campaign in 1992. It's the economy, stupid.